Good evening. We're starting tonight's show with the sad news that we've lost a dear friend and colleague. Dr. Michael Mosley was part of the original lineup of One Show reporters who made his first appearance in 2007, and he's been a familiar presence on the show ever since.
Yes, we've already had hundreds of messages from you sharing what a difference that he made to your life, so do please keep them coming in and we'll read some of them out a bit later on in the show. We'll also be joined by Dr. Chris Van Tullochen and Dr. Hannah Fry, who'll be sharing their memories of working with Michael.
Time now to remember our friend and colleague, Dr. Michael Mosley, who sadly died whilst on a holiday with his wife Claire on the Greek island of Symi. Now, his death has been felt by millions of people all around the world who regarded him as their doctor.
Yeah, now in a moment we'll be joined by Dr. Chris Van Tullochen and Dr. Hannah Fry, who'll be sharing their memories of working with him on shows like Trust Me, I'm a Doctor and Horizon. But first, we took to the streets today to hear your memories of him, and leading the tributes is Dr. Sarah Jarvis, who worked with him over many years, including here on The One Show.
Michael was absolutely charming. He was funny, he was clever, but what really came across was that he had this ability to communicate and he wanted to get important messages out.
Being a type 2 diabetic can have serious consequences: blindness, heart disease, stroke. It's generally seen as an incurable disease which has to be managed by medication. But what if you could reverse it?
Michael Mosley seemed like a really genuine character with a real desire to support healthier ways of living.
And he had the ability to reach out to all walks of life.
I think he wanted to serve the British people through his medical knowledge.
That man touched so many lives.
Diabetes, a thing of the past for you.
To be told that I'm within the normal range and non-diabetic, I think it's just fantastic, wonderful news.
He took really complicated science, then he'd turn it into something that resonated with everybody.
In recent years, there has been a surge of research into the gut microbiome.
He definitely inspired my wife. Say there's some Turkish yogurt, but it's the mainstay in our fridge.
And he said that by using himself as a guinea pig, he could make more difference than many doctors make in a lifetime.
You're just about to carry out the biggest sleep survey in the UK.
So many people struggle with sleep. He decided to really delve deep into the science and not just help himself, but to help millions of other people in the process.
After listening to him, I understood that getting those 8 hours is really important.
Breathing more slowly and allowing that to really help you manage the anxieties that you may be carrying. And I use that constantly throughout my life.
It's about fasting.
And this could be genuinely revolutionary.
I think him talking about it from his own personal experience, people will be able to relate to him and even more likely take on his advice.
Dr. Mosley was a real trailblazer and he will be remembered throughout history. He just made such an impact.
He's made a real difference to people's everyday lives, and not a lot of people get to do that.
The legacy that he leaves behind should, I hope, bring comfort to his family.
The ideas that he first brought out, he helped bring into the mainstream of health, are now there, and they continue to make a difference to the quality of people's lives.
It's still very hard to grasp what's happened. I think everybody feels that, don't they? But we are joined now by two people who worked with Michael, Dr. Chris Van Tullochen and Dr. Hannah Fry. Thank you so much both for joining us this evening. And first of all, as friends of Michael's, you know, so sorry to hear about what's happened over the weekend. It's an absolute shock.
Yeah.
Chris, you worked with him on Trust Me, I'm a Doctor. And I'm sure you've been thinking a lot today about Michael and the fun you had over the years. What are your memories of working with him?
I think anyone who watched Michael would know that he was kind of kind and generous on screen, but when he was not on screen, that was exactly who he was as well. And I think the thing you might not realise is that off camera, he created this incredible atmosphere in the BBC Science Unit. Hannah and Alex, you will both know, broadcasting and being talent can be a little bit cutthroat. It can be quite competitive. And Michael made sure that in that science unit, we felt like collaborators. And he set this tone that meant that over the last few days, all of these lovely kind of messages and memories that have been flooding into my phone have been from the production team and from my fellow presenters on Trust Me, I'm a Doctor. So it's Giles Yeo and Gabriel Weston and Salih Hassan. They're the ones who've been messaging me, and it's actually been a kind of incredible reunion. And that was Michael's leadership that forged those friendships that have endured over the last decade.
Hannah, I'm sure, you know, since the news, your mind has been thinking constantly about your times with Michael. Do you remember the first time that you met him?
Yeah, I do. And actually, it's just, it figures exactly with what Chris just said. Yeah. Because it was about 1 million years ago, and I was at this, like, science dinner, and I'd done, like, one small, tiny programme, you know, nothing really. But Michael was there, and he was like a titan, right? You know, like this great man of British science broadcasting. And he took the time to go and find me in the crowd and introduce himself to me, and then talk to me about the things that I was doing and the things that I wanted to do in future. And I think it's exactly how Chris said. I cannot tell you how many people, not just on screen, but off screen too, whose careers this man helped, whose careers he cemented and helped them to further. It's really off screen and on screen, exactly the same person.
Incredible.
Super generous man. And, you know, even when he'd come on here in my early days, and I was a bit shy then, right? And, you know, you always felt in such safe hands. Yes, I know it's hard to believe.
Checking, yeah.
But you always felt in safe hands and so generous with tips and tricks as well about anything you wanted to talk about, which was lovely. How do you think he differed then, Chris, from lots of other sort of TV professionals in terms of doctors, TV doctors then?
Well, I think he had such a gentle, humble style that it would be easy to forget that Michael is one of the most important broadcasters of the last few decades, you know, perhaps ever. I mean, he didn't just self-experiment and treat himself as a patient and as a guinea pig. He virtually invented that genre of doing things. Yeah. So you think back to the era before Michael. It was doctors and scientists in ivory towers telling you how to live your life and the facts about the world. And Michael went with curiosity and approached experts in this incredibly humble way and submitted himself for experimentation. And that has had the most incredible influence over the way that I do television and that Hannah does, and I think, you know, almost everyone else you see on TV now. And it came from him. He's such an important broadcaster.
Well, you're absolutely right, Chris. In a way, he put himself in the place of the patient, didn't he?
Exactly.
So instead of getting guinea pigs, he himself became the guinea pig, which was so powerful. We have had so many comments and messages. Thank you so much.
Let me start with one, actually.
Go on, then.
Because Nick has said he's such a nice man, so natural on screen and spoke to you like a friend. And I think of all the tributes we've been reading today, listening to yourselves as well, kindness is the word that just constantly keeps coming up.
I mean, completely. The thing is, but it's also modesty, right? There was this rumour going around that once Michael had saved somebody's life in the office, right? And I went and approached him about it and was like, tell me, is this true? And he sort of brushed it off, but it was completely true. Somebody collapsed in the BBC offices, in the corridors, and he saw them collapse. He went over, he performed CPR on them for almost half an hour until the emergency services arrived. Saved her life. She's gone on to have 2 children. I mean, this extraordinary thing. And, you know, if that was me, I think I'd be introducing myself. First thing I'd say would be like, did you know I saved somebody's life? But for Michael, it's just, you know, part of it.
Thank you both. He will be sorely missed, but Michael's legacy will live on. And of course, we send our condolences to Michael's wife, Claire, his children and his wider family.
And there will be a special tribute as well, a programme for Michael on Friday, 8 o'clock on BBC One. Well, that is all we've got time for this evening. Thank you to all of our guests.
We'll be back tomorrow with Boy George and Bridgerton stars Nicola Coughlan and Luke Newton.
But we'll leave you now with some more of your tributes to Dr. Michael Mosley. Good night.
Good night.